I have a question about hate crime legislation or
Yeah.
hate crime legislation in general. What what is the value of having hate crime legislation?
Hmm. I think that a lot of the value of it is that it's actually showing through legislation that government cares to a certain extent, and in that sort of way, um, it has kind of like a trickle down effect. I think it's hard though because it's so hard to prosecute a hate crime that a lot of the time things that should qualify as hate crimes don't necessarily get prosecuted as such. So I think the increased penalties are important because a lot of the time hate crimes that actually are prosecuted are so above and beyond what a typical, like quote unquote typical assault would be like, of either verbal or stalking or physical assault. The kind of the way that hate crimes are usually looked at is it's such a really above and beyond sort of enactment of violence, whereas opposed to mugging someone, they're severely beaten. And I think in that sort of way it's important to recognize the violence that's also put upon it. I think the other thing that's really important about hate crime legislation is hate crimes are not just against a person, hate crimes are against an entire community. And so when a hate crime occurs, it basically shows everybody in that community that you should be afraid because you're going to be next. And I think that the psychological aspects of that are so detrimental, not only to the person who suffers the hate crime, but to the entire community, that I think it's really important to kind of have that looked at in some way. And I think that that's one of the reasons, like I said, SafeSpace considers like hate speech or like people just spitting when you walk past the sidewalk and you don't really know because they don't really say anything, but you have a pretty good idea that the reason why they're doing it is because they think that you're a fag or something like that. What that does is it triggers people's thinking to the major hate crime cases that they've heard of. And everybody thinks of a hate crime as Matthew Shepard or Brandon Tina, whereas a lot of the hate crimes that go on you never see about, you never hear about, but the lasting effects of it are really severely emotional and kind of continue impacting the survivor's life for the rest of their life sometimes.
And everyone around them.
And everyone around them. Their friends, their family, their general community, if it's known about in the community. And word travels fast. It's a small community. So everybody knows someone in this way who knows someone in this way, and the word gets around.
So what issues are your group what issues are your group working on currently?
Issues in terms of
Like
legislation,
like,
or
what's on your plate? What
peas, potatoes, right? Tempeh. Well, we have a lot of things that are on our plate. SafeSpace is kind of a niche sort of organization because we work within the LGBT community, but we also work within the anti-violence community, which a lot of the time has grown out of the battered women's movement, which has done amazing things and unbelievable strides forward, but at the same time has been based in a really gendered model of violence, so that the only way that battering happens in a relationship is when it's a man against a woman in a heterosexual relationship. And it's not looking at the fact that there's a real power difference in there, and that violence is based on power and control. Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sexual violence, or whether it's hate violence. It's someone trying to, take power from another person. And I think that one of the huge issues that we face is being able to have people recognize that all these types of violence happen in the lives of LGBTQ people regularly. And that's a challenge that we face within the anti-violence movement, because it's really difficult to change that sort of thinking around the fact that men are the only ones that batter women. And it's something that we face in the LGBTQ community, because there's a huge amount of not wanting to air the dirty laundry. And when people are pushing forward for things like marriage rights and stuff like that, to have people saying, look, there's partner abuse in lesbian relationships, for instance, then a lot of the time people in the LGBTQ community will say, don't bring that up. They already have so much ammo against us anyway, why are you giving them more? And saying that our relationships are bad. When really that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that we're all human and we are completely open to the same sorts of pitfalls that heterosexual people are in their same relationships.